Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And it's delightful to have all of you join us today. I'm so happy when we're together. We have a wonderful show in store, so you're in for a great time of learning, connecting, and freedom. Before we get on, I just want to say hi to Amnan. Hello.
Hello, Marilyn.
How
How
are
are
you?
you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm just fine.
Yeah. Just real quick before we get on with our show, is there anything we should know about Facebook that you know that we don't know?
No, I mean, well, everybody's reading whatever they're reading, but yes, there's a lot of problems with breaching, not just with Facebook, a lot of other, and you just need to be vigilant about what you put out there on the net.
No way to protect yourself anymore.
There is no, I mean, look, you can lock your house. Somebody can break in. They can
True.
kick the door in. Now you can put another chain. Somebody bigger will break that.
Well, see, I'm
It's
not going to live
all
that way either.
the thing is you don't need to worry
Nope.
about it mainly uh personal stuff that you have in a personal website. It's to go to the bank online. If you do anything that
Yes.
you do, I mean, those guys are not going after Maryland. They're going after an institution that houses thousands and tens of thousands of
Well, it's
pieces
not
of
going to
information
stop.
that you're
It's
part
not
of
going to,
them.
it's not, you know what, though? I'd have to say, and maybe today's show is it's going to lead into something like this because it's not going to stop me. If I
No, it's
have to
gonna
be
get
out there to to do the work that I have been birthed to do, I am not going to hide.
they the best
Not
thing
gonna
that you
do it.
can do is make sure that you have a different password
Password.
for each.
Yes. I have them, they're so different, I can't remember them,
That's
but
okay.
we talked about this last week, and I'm just gonna say this. Sentences, right? A sentence.
You can put a
A
sentence. That's the
sentence,
latest thing.
which is brilliant because it's hard to tap into what
Right.
that final word would be. So you could say, "It's a sunny day in," and
Yeah.
who's gonna
Well,
guess what it is?
right. But I mean,
So
put something that's not so simple because they will take those words that most people will put. Oh, it's a nice day, or it's a sunny day. Put
in some
something
yeah,
else.
you have
Yeah.
to add
Put
something
something.
that they
Yeah.
cannot guess because you could say a million different places.
You can,
Yeah, name it
my
so
daughter's birthday is October 10th. This
yeah, so
is,
you have to think about something.
yeah.
Anyway, it's not
Okay.
gonna stop me, and I hope it's not gonna stop you, so let's continue to connect. Alright, so let me introduce my guests to you today. They've been on before, and it was terrific, but we only scratched the surface, so we knew that it was time to come back again and talk more, share more, and just break break through. So let me introduce, we have Susan. Hey, Susan.
Hey, Marilyn, how are ya?
I'm good. Susan's all the way from, Canada, right? Where they're celebrating Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, she's having turkey and all kinds of stuff. Welcome to the show. And Joy, oh, Joy Joy
She dropped.
left. She dropped. She'll be back. And then Denise is on the phone. Hey, Denise.
Hello, ladies. So excited to be here.
So excited to have you here. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
Excited to talk about this.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about reinventing ourselves and healing. So just a snip of what are we healing from?
Abuse.
Abuse.
Spousal partner abuse.
Toxic behaviors, toxic relationships. Just
And
a different form of what Susan just said.
okay. Yeah, well, and we need to find ways of healing or we stay in it. All right.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so Amnon told me Joy is here. So Joy, you're here?
Yeah, sorry. They're working on the cable out here and my internet got cut off for a minute.
Well, welcome, Joy.
Thank you so much.
So
Sorry about
now
that.
tell everybody who you are.
I'm Joy Forrest and I am the founder of Called to Peace Ministries. We are a non-denominational nonprofit ministry that helps survivors of abuse with support groups. We do counseling, advocacy, and we try to help educate people, particularly churches, on how to deal with it.
Great. And Susan, now tell everybody what you do.
I'm Susan Ball, and I'm the founder of Empowered Her, and I'm a passionate advocate for women to leave and heal after abusive, toxic relationships. I want every woman to live an empowered life.
Great. And Denise?
Denise Dominguez, transformational coach, speaker, and author. I also help women heal post toxic relationships, narcissistic personality disorder, relationships, all of that. And I have her do with 4 key steps. And I am breaking through my speaking career, so excited to reach as many women as possible to move past the abuse, move past the toxic behavior, and create an amazing life for herself.
So, and let's also keep, when we talk about this, there's all kinds of abusive relationships, and you could be, I know that it could be a brother, it could be a sister, it could be a lot of abusive relationships. So some of the information you're going to hear today, you can apply to any relationship that you are involved with that is abusive. Keep that in mind.
Correct.
And we don't need any abuse. As far as I'm concerned, we want to stomp out abuse and narcissistic behavior. So, all right. So we're gonna talk about the healing process and reinventing yourself, because it's when you come out of those relationships, as these women will share, it's not knowing where to go, what to do, and self-esteem is low. You feel raw and confused, and you don't always feel like you know what you're doing, period. So let's start with Susan. Go ahead. Why don't you share with us some things about leaving?
I think for me, when I left and it was raw, as you said, as it was, I think the one thing that I inspire all my clients to do the same thing, is to really let your emotions out. I call it rage and weep, because we're not programmed to do that, especially when we have kids around. We're trying to be stoic and be brave and what's the word? Not fall apart in front of them, not break down in front of them. But when you're alone, it's really important. And I don't mean yelling and screaming, but if you can sit down with a notebook and write out those angry feelings that you have, it helps to purge them. It's very cathartic. And the same with crying. There's a moment where you really need to sit down and really weep and cry for the loss of the relationship, the loss of the dream, whatever it is you're crying for, because it helps to purge those feelings. And I remember sitting with my 2 girls, forever trying to be stoic, to be brave, to show a happy face, and that's great. But there's also this place for really raging and really weeping about what you've lost and what you've gone through.
So acknowledging it.
Acknowledging
the loss. It's okay to acknowledge it all.
Yeah.
Right?
It hurt. I mean, I lost a lot, not just material things, but I lost what I thought was going to be my future. And I almost died. And I had to work through all of those emotions. And people would say to me, oh, you'll get over it. But there was this time where I realized I really, really needed to let that anger loose. I needed to let it fly.
And I would add on that note, a lot of, when you're mourning the death of something, whether it's a relationship or an actual person, a lot of times people will tell you, to move on, and, what are you thising about? What are you thatting about? You've got to do it in your own time as well. So it's your healing. So regardless of what we tell you today, this is your healing and this is your process. And you have to take it on as your own. And you listen for some of the things, and, some of them will work now, some of them won't, some of them will work later. Do whatever you can do. And let me also say, you are welcome to call in anytime you like at 919-518-9773, or you can join us in our chat if you like. And there are people in there, and you can ask questions, you can comment, you can just acknowledge whatever you like. And if you have something to say and you're not comfortable saying it, that's a good place. If you like, you're more than welcome to be in there as well. So Joy.
Yes.
Start us off on how you start with the healing process.
Well, very much like Susan, I think I was just in shock when I was going through it. And I mean, you get to this point where it seems like the rug is pulled out from under you and it feels like you've lost everything. For me, as a Christian woman, scripture was really helpful and comforting to me when finding the right promises. I'm telling you, a lot of times people will go to scripture and find things that are condemning. But I had, in my case, it was very comforting. And I actually have a book where I talk about that process. But I had to do the same thing Susan mentioned. I did a journaling. I think journaling is very powerful. And I just typed out. Mine turned out to be like typing out prayers. Like, this is do you see what he's done to me? I remember hitting my exclamation point so many times that I thought I was going to break my computer. I was hitting it so hard because I was angry. And I was sad. And I mean, you've got so many emotions that you're going through, and you do have to, like, first of all, acknowledge what you've been through. And you can't heal from something that you haven't fully admitted. A lot of the women we work with actually don't even recognize what they've been through as abusive. So it's very difficult to heal when you haven't even admitted to the problem yet.
That's a big deal, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big deal. And
Mm-hmm.
Denise,
Yes.
what's the beginning stages for healing?
Well, I know for me, just like what Joy said, I didn't know the truth of what I had been through. So I thought that just leaving the situation, boom, I was done. Everything was great. And so what ended up happening was my rebellious teenager showed up for 2 years. And the result of that was me numbing myself with alcohol and men. And from that was I found myself attracting the same type of person. And so then that led to reaching out to somebody, a mentor, coaching, and which led to my healing journey. But you first have to know what just transpired, what you've been through for the past X amount of years in order for, awareness is the first key. It's the first part of the process to the healing journey. If you don't know that you've been through domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, whatever, then how do you know the next step to the healing process if you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. So sitting with your emotions is extremely healthy, and giving yourself permission to be pissed off and cry and grieve over the dream that you had as a family and the breakup of that, and know this, that once you come through that, just the awareness that you've got some work to do. But it's so beautiful. The work is beautiful. The acknowledgement is beautiful. The awareness is beautiful. The end result is beautiful. The journey is beautiful. It's all beautiful. There's nothing to be afraid of or scared of. It's a beautiful journey.
So what do you think about the Band-Aids? Like the drinking to get you out, or the other men that get you out? What about those? What do you think about those?
Well, I think that wherever we are in life is where we're supposed to be. So for me, that was protecting me and helping me at that time until I was ready to come to that awareness of, okay, Denise, are you seeing the patterns in your life now? Do you want something different in your life? These are questions that came up for me. And when I was ready to answer those questions and to be like, yeah, I want something different. I don't want to, be promiscuous and get drunk every weekend. I want something more for myself. Then that's when I reached out to somebody. That's when I, took the step further into what's next for me. Mm-hmm. So the truth is wherever we are is where we're supposed to be. And everything in our lives is telling us something. So for me, the awareness of that I kept attracting the same type of person was telling me that there was something inside of me that needed attention and needed healing.
Gotcha.
And then it stopped. Once I healed that, it stopped. I don't attract those people anymore.
Sure. Well, once you learn the signs of what the red flags look like, or the orange
Mm.
ones. It's it makes it easier.
Pink,
Pink,
whatever.
whatever sign is popping up, right?
Right.
So Susan,
Pay attention.
yeah, pay attention. So as far as Band-Aids,
Yeah, well, I have a similar story to Denise, but mine was slightly different in that I got very caught up in the being told I was a victim and that I was a victim of domestic violence, and it became my identity. So I would drink because I was a victim. I was promiscuous because I was a victim. I became very much living in that sort of victim mentality. And anything I did, if anybody questioned it, I would say, "How dare you? I'm a victim." Literally.
so you say I'm a victim, so of course I could drink. Of
course I
course
can.
I could. It's all right. I'm a victim. I'm already a victim.
I'm already a victim. I'm
Got it.
already damaged. This is it for the rest of my life. And I bought into that story, and that almost killed me. So he almost did, and then that story almost killed me.
I hear. Okay. All right. And Joy, I saved you for last because when I asked Denise the question, you kind of gave a yes sign with your head. So as far as the victim, as far as the Band-Aid is concerned?
Well, for me, I think, I mean, personally, when you live with abuse, you have been brainwashed pretty much. And so I always tell people it's like an addictive relationship. So you're looking for something to fill that void again. I desperately felt like I needed to be in relationship, but I guess because of I can be thankful, my religious beliefs kept me, I didn't believe in divorce. I was definitely not going to go out and live, do the things that Denise did, but it didn't mean I was any healthier. Let's just put it that way.
So maybe you eat,
Huh?
maybe you
Yeah,
eat.
I don't know. Actually, I
Yeah.
just got to this point. There was a time, and 80% of the women that we deal with who have gone through some form of domestic abuse have PTSD, whether it be physical or not. And so you're just in this hypervigilant state. You're trying to numb yourself somehow. So I remember sitting in front of, this is 20 years ago when I got out, sitting in front of TNT, watching old Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies because I just could not bring myself, I didn't have the energy to do much of anything else, outside my typing on the computer and my my journaling, which was very helpful. It was a very, I just wanted to escape. I understand that. That's what we all want to do.
Right.
And there is escape. It keeps hitting you back in the face. So
Right. Well, there's a lot to talk about here, and Chris is asking, can all of you go over the signs of different types of domestic violence?
Yep.
So you want to
Well,
start, Joy?
yeah, my face is on the screen.
Yeah, your face is there. Might as well save time.
Yeah. So we have I'm also, I've worked at a domestic violence shelter, and I had done training. I used to be an educator for a domestic violence shelter, and we have an amazing tool called the Power and Control Wheel. And that was an eye opener for me because I still, even though I had been physically abused at this point, we had years and years and years where it wasn't physical, and then it got physical towards the end and it got very deadly. When I saw that Power and Control Wheel, I had been telling people, "Oh, it's not abusive. He just can't help himself." I made excuses for him. He'd had an abusive past. And so when I saw the Power and Control Wheel, I just started crying because I went, "Oh my goodness, it's been abusive all along." Because basically, it's all about power and control. It's about any way they can to keep you under control. There's isolation. They'll cut you off from your friends, your family, your support systems. There is emotional abuse, putting you down, making you feel worthless, and just pretty much attacking your personhood. There's financial abuse. So basically, a lot of women, and this is the number one reason that people stay in abusive situations, is that they've had all their financial support cut off. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, isolation, using the children. I've got a woman in my support group right now who will not leave because this is her husband's third marriage, and both times he's got lots of money, he's a PhD, and every time he's gotten full custody of the children. So she stays there and she puts up with it. Financial abuse. There's minimizing, denial, and blame. So it's not ever my fault. It's always your fault. And if I did do something wrong, it wasn't that big a deal.
Oh, well, you made me do it.
Yeah, exactly. So those are some of the things. There's a male privilege that's on the power and control wheel because we do find it more with men than women. It's not to say that women aren't abusive, but it's usually the women end up in a much worse position a lot of times, especially the financial abuse tends to be more lopsided in that direction. So anyway, just looking at a power and control wheel would be very helpful for somebody who suspects that maybe they're in a situation like this.
Okay. Well, and Denise, do you have something to add to that?
Ditto everything that Joy just said. My niche is the narcissistic abuse. So basically, just take out the violence, and it's the same thing. So yeah, the control and the manipulation is like the biggest red flag in your face, right? Isolation from your friends and family, your support system, like Joy said. Yep, same thing. And I was watching this documentary on Netflix about women in jail, and this woman said something that was so powerful and really stuck out for me because she said, getting back to didn't know it was abuse, that her husband would he controlled what makeup she wore, what clothes she wore, what job she had, and he did it in such a way that she thought it was sweet. So it wasn't like this blatant, and this is what people think of when they think of abuse. They think that the man is, you're not wearing that, you're wearing this, where it's not like that at all. It's so subtle that you don't even know what's happening. It's like, hey, babe, you would look great in this instead of this. Or you would look better in this color makeup instead of this. I think this job would benefit you better if you were here. You know what I mean? It's
Right. So it's not
subtle that
one.
you don't.
So it's not one thing though. It becomes it invades everything. So it's the makeup, the
Absolutely.
hair, the job, your friends, your clothing. It's all of those things. It's not just one of those things.
Correct. Yes. It depends on how controlling he is. Like my ex didn't tell me. He did tell me what to wear, or more of what I couldn't wear. He didn't go with the makeup thing. Definitely, I was financially abused. It was better if you're a stay-at-home mom and you don't have a job. It's better if you do that. So see, and I was like, yeah, you're right, it is. And so there's that subtle move that I was being controlled without even knowing that I was being controlled.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's how they do it, because they are master manipulators.
Right.
Yeah.
Susan, do you have something to add to that?
I do. A couple of things that sometimes get overlooked, and I agree with everything that everybody said, and especially the isolation and the manipulation and control. But also, if you're dating somebody, watch the way he's talking about his exes. Because a lot of times that's a bright red, shining, flashing red flag. Because he will often, these abusers will say, she's all to blame, it's all her fault. She was a bitch, she did this. If she hadn't behaved that way, this wouldn't have happened, so on and so forth. You get a very clear indication of the person. Also, the way that they treat people who are in service industries. If you're out in a restaurant, the waiter, how they treat animals, all of those things add up to the same sort of thing. And the one other thing that I didn't recognize at the time is they use sex as manipulation. They use it as a control tool. And they will say things to you like, you don't love me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to do this, who are you doing it with? You obviously don't love me. You're obviously not interested in me. So you start to feel that you have to. It's no longer a matter of wanting to, it's that you have to. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so these things they're there, they're subtle, they can be right in your face, they're blatant. It can be painful as far as physical pain, emotional pain, all of those things. Now, and it's just tell me, what is the percentage? And is there a percentage of women overall that leave and those that stay?
I have no idea.
Is
Does
there
anybody
any
know?
percentage of that? Anybody know? Joy?
I don't know.
I don't know the exact
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know, and not just based on my experience or surroundings, but also psychiatrists and psychologists say that the majority of these relationships, when we're talking about narcissistic behavior, the majority they don't work out. The woman decides to divorce. You can't rehabilitate an abusive person. You can't bring awareness to him or her, if she's the abuser, that what you're doing is actually abuse. What you're doing is actually controlling. What you're a master manipulator, because they don't recognize this. They're not going to admit to this.
Never, ever, ever.
I got some statistics on that.
Okay.
So when I worked at the shelter, I learned that without any intervention, 3 to 5% of abusive or abusers will change spontaneously. Maybe they'll have some kind of an epiphany. So we're looking at a very, very low percentage.
3 to what? 3 to 5?
3 to 5%. And if you add batterer intervention groups, so they tend to be the most effective means of any kind of rehabilitation, but they're still extremely low. And the success rate in the batterer intervention groups is somewhere between 16 and 50%. So we're still looking at a 50-50 chance of it not working. And what I find is that if somebody doesn't know how to work with these guys, it's not going to work out. And so I would say that the vast majority of them end in divorce. The average person, victim will leave 7 to 8 times before getting out for good, but they do usually get out.
So let me ask you this question, and then I want to get into more of the what steps women can do, and men or whoever can do when they're involved in a narcissistic relationship and so forth. But can you 3 spot someone within a few seconds of being in their presence and know that yes.
Yes.
I thought so.
Yeah.
That just makes my throat sink. I mean, that's a good thing, but and how do you control yourself? What do you do when you're in somebody's presence that you can see is narcissistic or an abuser? What do you do? Anybody?
Stay away.
Stay away.
Anyway,
I know not to.
I think for me, the hardest thing is when I recognize, or I'm around a woman and I recognize that she's in an abusive relationship. That's when I want to, do the big intervention and run her down the road and say, he's a very bad man. It's time to get out, because you see all the red flags, you see the behaviors, you see her defending him. Something ugly will happen and she jumps right in to defend him, and so on and so forth. That's when I have a difficult time. When I see somebody who's an abuser, I know that I can just eliminate them from my life. I don't have to worry about that person or let them enter my domain, so to speak. Yeah. It's the women that get to me.
Yeah, I can tell. And I can tell. I can look at him and tell when a woman is waiting on a man hand and foot. I mean, to me, that tells me something right there.
Yep.
Amnon had something to say. Yeah.
I was just wondering, is there any kind of a class that women can take and I know it involves intuition and gut feeling also, and being there in the situation, but to know the basic things that if you see one of those things, or 2 or 3 or 4, watch out. So women can learn how to even recognize it and be, not reactive instead of reactive after the fact that they start suffering. And they say, oh yeah, I saw this and I knew he was doing this and he was doing this. So yeah, he is. Is there anywhere that you can tell women in general, yeah, you can pick up this book or you can pick up this class online or anything?
Well, there's books, and that's what we do in our support groups. So I know that the domestic violence shelters often have support groups, but there are plenty of books out there nowadays that talk about it. They're just everywhere you turn, there's one that might. Hey, and Denise, and you haven't read your book yet, but I think you might even have the signs of it. I know I have it in mine. There just are. Yeah, and yours too, Susan. Sorry. Yeah. hadn't read yours yet either. So we all have books that describe those.
So why don't you
characters.
let's talk about your books now. And the thing is, though, which is, it's a very good point that Amnon brings up. The problem is you have to identify the fact you have an issue to find the book, or identify the
Correct.
fact that you have an issue to go to a class or
Yes.
to seek out help. So that's how do you get somebody to see that? That's the problem. That's why we're doing
I
this show. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think that the issue, and I've been pondering this for a long time, is for me, it was a confidence issue. I was so desperate for love that anybody would do. And I think we have to, instead of getting to the women who are already involved with somebody, getting to younger girls and teaching them that it's okay to walk away when you see one of those signs. It's okay to live your life single. It's okay to have a different kind of life. You don't have to have a boyfriend in your life. I noticed that, and I speak to a lot of young women. I have a lot of young clients, and they are 19, 20, 21. They have no confidence. They have no self-esteem. They find themselves pregnant early, desperate to stay in this relationship. So there's something we're missing between puberty and the teenage and the love years to inspire girls, young girls, to say, no way, buddy, you are not treating me like that. No way. That's forbidden. And teaching them about boundaries and standing up for themselves. Somewhere along the line, we're missing that message. That's what I'm feeling.
Well, correct me if I'm it's not about being wrong, but this is a piece of what I also think, that there's so many of our children are in abusive families.
Absolutely.
And then it just, and they go from there. And like Amnon said, they can't just walk away. Well, how do you walk away from something you don't know, that you don't know there should be something different? And so
That's
they
right.
grow up and then they end up being abused. So that's
In our groups, a lot of them came from really good homes, and I did not come from an abusive family. I think it's like Denise was saying earlier, that it's so subtle. The process is so subtle that we don't recognize what's happening to us. And so, but I really do believe that just our culture in general, like you look at all the love stories, the movies, and everybody, you've got to be with somebody to be satisfied and fulfilled. And everybody jumps straight into bed with somebody, on the first date, or in some of these TV shows. But it's like, this is where we find our satisfaction. So rather than giving them a sense of worth within themselves, they find their worth in a relationship, like Susan was alluding to.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's such a great point that Joy just brought up, because you're exactly right. And also in the movies and the movie stars and the TV actors and actresses, there is this illusion of the tall, dark, and handsome, powerful man. And, so getting back to what you were saying earlier, Marilyn, is there, like, can you recognize a narcissistic person within a few seconds of seeing them? Yes, there's almost a profile of them. And for me, what I talk about and what I see and what I attracted in myself was a very good-looking person who made a lot of money, who was well-known in the community, well-liked in the community. People liked him. He was funny. He was charismatic. And so the same thing as in the movies, using Charlie Sheen as an example. So, very handsome, and the women flock to him, but look how abusive he is. Or there's plenty of other examples. That's just who came to my mind. But we see this in the movies, that these men are so attractive and so we want that type of person. I get on the phone with women all the time and I ask her, what does she want? And she goes straight to that. Well, I need a guy who's tall. I can't have a short guy. Okay, well, guess what you're missing out by cutting that off? You know what I mean? I need to have this certain type of guy. And she goes with the looks and the job. And I did it too.
Mhm.
And the universe always gives you what you ask for. So if you ask for these shallow, things, you're going to get these shallow things instead of saying, this is what I want in a relationship. I want somebody who loves me, who communicates with me, who's emotionally available. Nobody says that. They go straight for the outer things. He has to make good money. He has to be this. He has to be that. And you get what you ask for.
Absolutely. Amnon says he has to have an iPhone. There's another a good question on the chat, and I want to ask this question too. Is there? And I think it's a good one. And I know you specialize in working with women, but in your knowledge, how are men and female abusers? How are they different? Are men more physical than the women? What do you think? What do you know?
Well, I think that men can do a whole lot more damage than the women. I have a friend who does batterer intervention groups, and he does them for women who have been convicted of abuse, or they've been found guilty, or there was a
Could you share?
protective.
Could you connect him and I together?
Sure, yeah, he would be great.
I would love to have him on the show.
But what he was saying is that in his group that has women batterers, most of them were reacting. They were fighting back. Now, can a woman be controlling, emotionally manipulative? Absolutely, and I believe that's more common. But when it comes to the physical abuse, according to him, I mean, he does it in his state. He's up in West Virginia. He says that probably 80 to 90% of the women that he sees in his batterer groups are therefore defending themselves.
Yep. What do you say, Denise?
Well, I have some numbers here with domestic violence, and I wanted to bring this up because it keeps shouting to me. Getting back to the numbers, 1 in 3 women have been abused by their partner. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women between the ages of 15 and 44 in the United States. More than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. That's huge right there. Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah, that's staggering.
Yes. And studies show that 3 to 4 million children between the ages of 3 and 17 are at risk of exposure to domestic violence each year. The United States government statistics say that 95% of domestic violence cases involve women victims of male partners. So getting back to what Joy was saying, the children of these women often witness the domestic violence. So if you see that as a relationship, you're going to think on a subconscious level, not on a conscious level. Clearly, that's abuse. Mom's getting hit. This is bad. She's crying. But on a subconscious level, we think that's normal. That's what relationships look like.
What did she do?
What did who do?
What did she do to deserve it?
Right. Yes. Right. Exactly.
Right. Susan.
Yeah. And so.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, finish. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say there's 5 general categories of abuse tactics. One is physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's financial abuse, and there's identity abuse. And, October, this is why we're here, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is so huge for the community and worldwide for us to know what are the signs of abuse. Because here we go with the subtle thing again. Being financially abusive, again, I didn't know. He was the breadwinner. I was the stay-at-home mom. We lived a nice life. We had a nice house. We had nice cars. We went on nice vacations. So I didn't feel like I was being financially abused. And you don't.
Right.
That's how subtle it is. So, but financial abuse is real. It happens.
And it looks like Denise was saying, you stay home, take care of the kids. They pay all the bills. They do this, they do that. They look over everything. You have no control over it. If you have no control over something, if somebody takes away your control, consider it abuse.
Mm-hmm.
On anything. If somebody's taking your control away, it's abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Susan, do you want to chime in here?
I just think that we really need to get to a conversation about healthy relationships.
Go for it.
Huh?
Go for it.
because we don't have a good understanding of what a
No, we
healthy
don't.
relationship is. Between what Joy said, the culture, the media, what's presented, what our parents have presented to us, whether on the surface they looked happy or our first boyfriend was a complete and utter disaster. We have no idea as young women and as young men what is a healthy partner, what is a healthy relationship, boundaries, self-esteem, confidence, standing up for yourself, speaking your own truth, being authentic. All of those things, we miss out on all of that. I know I didn't learn any of that stuff. Nobody talked to me about boundaries. No one. All my mother ever said to me was, if you go out with a boy, don't have sex with him on the first date. Because if he gets the milk for free, he's not going to want to buy the cow. That was my big advice. But the thing is, I wasn't taught about boundaries like that. I could set my own boundary around that I could make my own decisions, and I could set boundaries about how I was to be picked up at home or whatever I wanted to set a boundary about. Nobody talked to me about that. We don't talk to young girls and young boys about that.
Yeah, we need a really good conversation going on about respecting each other.
Yeah.
Men respecting women, women respecting men respecting men, women respecting women. I mean, we need a lot of conversation. So let's start here right now. Okay, so you brought up some really good points about boundaries, right?
Yes. And I don't know about Joy and Denise and even yourself, Marilyn, or anyone who's listening, but anybody sit down with you as a young person and talk to you about boundaries or what you valued in life, because maybe your values were not the same as your parents. When my parents were very, what would you say? I called them old school. You got married, you bought a house, you had kids, you got a job, you did all of that. I grew up in the hippie era. I wanted to be a free spirit and dance, and I was just the weirdo. But nobody said to me, pursue your dream, be authentic, go and do what you want to do. Everyone sat me down and said, Susan, no, 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 no. You must do A, B, C, and D. And that's disrespecting my values. But we don't have that conversation. So I learned to bury all of that, to be inauthentic, to do all the things, as I call it, living my should life.
I would say for me, I had to learn that in practice. And I think maybe a lot other people have to go through that too, because nobody told me what it should look like or what to do either. So I had to learn as I go.
Yep.
So what did that mean? That meant that, I was in those kinds of relationships. Nobody beat me up, but I can tell you, I was in several relationships where, you're talking to your children too much, you're talking to your mother too much, you're not spending enough time with me. Oh my God. Right? I mean, I learned as I went. I learned what abuse looked like because I was in it. Nobody told me what it was going to look like. I learned what narcissism looked like. I experienced it. I knew that can't be right.
But wouldn't it be nice if we encouraged people to pursue joy and happiness, and that it doesn't involve marriage and children and a career or that it can be what you want it to be?
Yeah. Well, how many of you will tell a woman I know I have in my practice, when a woman or a man is in an emotionally abusive relationship and they have children and they want to stay for the children. I can't tell you how many times I have discussed with them the opportunities for your children to see you in a happy relationship is far better than you staying in a relationship that isn't good. I'd rather see friends and whoever in a relationship and not be married and be happy than be married and miserable. And have that be what we can describe as happy.
Because it's not a practice life.
No, this is not a dress rehearsal. Joy?
Well, I'll amen that. I want to go back to what Susan was saying a while ago about always telling this is what you should do, and We had a therapist that speak at our last conference, and she said, "You got to quit shooting all over yourself." So I like that. Yes. So, um, yeah. So, for me, being a woman of faith, I believe that our purpose is far more there. That's the thing, and one of the reasons that I have this ministry that I believe for churches, because a lot of times, the church is very quick to say, your purpose in life is to be a wife, especially. So what I find is very lopsided a lot of times. It is definitely male privileges um, endorsed by our more conservative churches. And I came out of that very conservative tradition, but I believe that God has a purpose in life for all of us, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tied up with. It's not tied up with a person. I mean, He's got a plan, I think, for us. So we all agree on that. Life, the purpose of life, is definitely not just to find this partner that gets suggested in the movies and walk off happily into the sunset, because there's really far more purpose and value in life, especially when you're being just manipulated and controlled like that. You basically lose who you are. Totally forgot what I liked and didn't like by the time I was out of that relationship. I had to find out, I met him when I was 14 and didn't get out till I was 39. And so
Wow.
all of those years that I was with him, he was telling me what I liked. And I didn't realize even what my preferences in life were, because I had been so controlled for so long.
Well, a lot of us
And
grow up that way. Our
mhm,
parents do that,
yeah,
even when they
yeah,
don't mean to. Here's a
yeah.
really good question that I think it's important that we take time to answer, because so Michelle on the chat is saying, "How do you co-parent with a narcissist? My divorce will be this coming January, and he constantly tries to still control, manipulate everything."
I think Susan would be a great person to answer that question.
Susan,
Okay.
Susan, because
you've been
you
voted.
just went through that with your daughter.
Yes, and I will tell you exactly how you have to do this. And I know that it's really easy, and I actually have an expert coming on to speak. I'm having a conference and they're going to speak about this. But here's the trick. Everything that you do with this parent, the other parent, do it in writing only. No phone conversations. No he said, she said.
No
Absolutely never,
texting.
ever.
No texting.
No texting. Email only. He wants to change the time of pickup. He says that at the door. In the next 2 weeks, I want to come an hour early. You go to your computer and you say, just to confirm, Saturday, da 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 da, you're coming at 5 p.m. to pick up Katie. Put
And
it in writing.
why writing?
Because you have an evidentiary track. Because
Exactly.
these guys are master manipulators, and they will say that you are doing everything to keep them from their child.
There you go. Anything
So you have
else?
to do that.
Yes.
The other thing is, when you're at the door at drop off and pickup time, is the time when they can really manipulate and get inside your head and start an argument. You must practice the gray rock method. That's the time that you want to incorporate that into your lifestyle. When he asks you a question that's personal, you absolutely do not answer it. You move on to something else, as here's here's our daughter's bag. Have a great weekend. You don't answer any personal questions at all, ever, in person, ever. You just become, you're here to get the child. Here's the child. See you on Sunday.
And don't ask any questions either.
And don't ask any questions. You don't want to know the answer anyway.
Right. Okay,
And he's
good.
going to give you an answer. If you say, oh, I saw you last week with the blonde, he's going to say, oh yeah, that's one of several, just to get under your skin. So
Right.
don't ask, don't tell, don't get into a conversation. Keep it gray rock. Keep it on the topic of the children.
So tell me if this is, in your opinion, on the right track. It takes a long time for a person to get out of the skin of a narcissist. You can be way down the line, many women or many men between you and them, and you are still under their skin. If they lose, if they feel that they have lost and they did not win, they will very often want to keep at you. So you have to be strong, and you have to, like what Susan is suggesting, And even maybe you don't even let them, you change at a public place. You don't even change at your house, or you have somebody with you. I mean, I had a client who had to do this with her ex-husband, and she had to bring her mother with her all the time because he was always trying to find a way to get her up against the car.
In my daughter's case, I coached her through it, and it was very difficult for her because it was do not react, smile, say okay, put it in writing, passing it on to my lawyer, keep everything robotic. Do not allow, and there was times when she would stomp and rage and weep and punch the walls, and I'd say, okay, you're good now. Back to the computer and write your message, right? Do not engage in any kind of personal, emotive behavior with them because they're waiting for that to happen. Now he doesn't even try. It got boring. He's moved on.
Mm-hmm. So I just wrote to Michelle on the chat just to tell her if there's any other questions she has about it to please ask us, because that's good. Joy, did you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, well, I actually just did an interview with an expert on that. She's written a book about it too. Her name is Dr. Deborah Wingfield, and she was saying one thing that I'm seeing a lot in our ministry is that a lot of times the abusive parent will try to turn the children against the parent who's been the victim. So basically what she was talking about is how to build resiliency skills with your children. And so she had a lot of really good information. That's on our Vimeo channel, but it's a huge problem. And I totally agree with what Susan says. Do the gray rock. We teach people you try to go no contact as much as you can with somebody like this because you can't win. And if you have to have contact with them, then you do this basically. I call it the power of disengagement. You basically disengage as much as you possibly can so that when you're having this, because it's like once you step your little toe into that vortex, they're going to suck you in.
You just hope for the day when your kids are driving and you don't have to engage. Denise, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, the reason why I wanted Susan to answer that question is because I know she's just experienced that, and the advice that she gives is such a golden nugget. And basically what she's saying is, it all ties back to those boundaries, right? What you described, Susan, was that we need to have boundaries within ourselves first in order for us to have boundaries with other people. And that's why he got bored, because your daughter had these strong boundaries with herself. And so he moved on to somebody else or something else because he got bored. She wasn't feeding into his crap, right? So it boils down to, just loving yourself and having those boundaries for yourself, knowing you're worth more and that you're not worth this crap. And there's a reason why you left.
Right.
There's a reason why you left. Stick with that. Don't feed into the crap. And he's trying to, quote unquote, push your button, trigger you. So this is we could talk about a whole nother segment with triggers, but if you're still being triggered by him or anybody in your life, then that's something that you need to look inside of you to heal you so that you're not triggered by these people. Mm-hmm. If somebody gets to you that quickly with one sentence, one question, and it's a trigger for you, that's an open wound. So pay attention to that.
That's a very good point. And some of these things, yes, there are certain things that you have to take care of, but there are other things sometimes you have to let them go.
I want to add one more thing.
Yes.
and that my daughter went through, and this, anybody who's listening will relate to. And I had to remind her over and over again that her relationship with her ex had nothing to do with her ex's relationship with their son. None. They're separate. And even though Amy hated him and wanted him to die, I had to keep reminding her that the relationship with his son was going to be allowed by a court of law, and that it was up to her to create boundaries and responsibilities and resiliencies and ways to work through that, because the reality is those children will get to see their dad. So it's up to you to get to the point where you can manage your feelings for the child's benefit. You can hate your ex as much as you want. You can plot his demise. Makes no difference. But when the child is going out the door, it's a bye-bye, have a great weekend, honey.
Right.
End of story.
And live your best life so that your children can see what good looks like, because
That's right.
they got to see the difference.
Mhm.
And look, I would love to have you all back again because we're out of time again. So
Ooh.
go one by one, share your books and things that are coming up and where our audience can find you. And Michelle, I want to thank you so much for asking the question, and I congratulate you on the steps that you've taken and where you are in your life. So, Joy, tell
Mhm.
everybody what's going on for you.
Well, we actually have a conference coming up in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. It's called Justice to Light, and it's exposing the hidden problem of domestic abuse in our churches. And we'll have information for people who want to know how to help, as well as people who are survivors of abuse. And my book is Called to Peace, A Survivor's Guide to Finding Peace and Healing After Domestic Abuse. So they can find me at calledtopeace.org, and maybe you can write that out for them, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris is on the chat. Okay, and Denise?
Well, the audience can find me at my website, denisedominguez.com. I'm all over social media, and this month for honoring Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I am doing every Monday at 8 o'clock a free training call. It's a free webinar. Anybody can join. Tonight, my topic is the heartless truth between empaths and narcissists. And so every Monday for the first 4 Mondays of October, I'll be doing that. They can find me on my website, denisedominguez.com. My book is Empower the Woman Within, Stepping into Total Freedom. It is my journey of where I was, how I came out of it, where I am now, creating a beautiful relationship, healthy relationship. And that is on Amazon.
Terrific. And Susan?
Thank you.
Hi. Well, I'm having a wonderful weekend Healing Narcissistic Trauma Conference on October 27th and 28th, and it's free. And there's 20 experts, including Joy and Denise, who are two of my experts on the conference. And you can sign up for it at my website at www.susanball.ca. There's a link for the conference. Also, I want to let everyone know, because I'm pretty excited about this, Denise and I are starting a radio show called Fierce Women Rising. So there's going to be a lot of information and a lot of discussion about abuse, healing, how to know if you're really in an abusive relationship or not, etc. Right, Denise? It's going to be fun.
It's going to be amazing.
And when are you starting?
October 18th, I
Terrific.
believe now, isn't it?
Well, please
Yes,
feel
next
free
Wednesday.
to put it in our, on Facebook, on the Breaking Free Show, Marilyn Shannon, and share it there as well. That would be
Oh, thank you.
wonderful.
Nice, thank
Yes,
you.
definitely. And I am having my book launch for my In Just One Afternoon, Listening to the Hearts of Twins, this Thursday in North Raleigh. And I have a panel of twins from the age of 10 all the way up to 93. We'll be talking about relationships. We'll be talking about becoming an individual regardless. And it's going to be wonderful, fabulous. And you'll see my books there as well as the men. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. If I can be of any service at all, please reach out to me at marilyn@marilynshannon.com. And I want to thank each of you for taking your time today. Susan, Joy, and Denise for being here and sharing openly. We can't talk about this enough. We have to talk
Yes.
more and more and more and more and expose everything more and more so that
Yes.
there is nothing to hide and
Yes.
no place
Thank
to
you,
hide.
Marilyn.
My pleasure. And I wish you
Thank you,
all well.
Marilyn.
Thank you so much, Susan and Joy and Denise.
Yes.
And thank you all for being here. I love you all. I will see you next week. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.